Hello. Hello guys and girls. Today we're looking at completing backtracking diagrams using the inverse on top of the arrow. Okay, now that sounds a little bit tricky, but it's not as hard as it sounds. Okay, just reminding you of what we looked at in a previous video, what the inverse operation is. So the inverse of add is take away. The inverse of take away is add. The inverse of times is divide. And the inverse of divide is times. Okay, and that information will be really, really useful in doing this. So here I'm given a backtracking diagram. N to, or N, and then this little arrow pointing towards N, and then N plus 4. Okay, and what I need to do is write down something above the little arrow that tells me how I get from N plus 4 back to N. Okay, so if I'm given any number plus 4, or sort of someone had, say, the number, just to make it up, the number 10 was the same as N plus 4, and we wanted to work out what the original number was without the plus 4, all we need to do is take away 4, and then we'd work out that our original N was 6. Okay, and this is just using this as a diagram to like make that process that should be a little bit intuitive into a formal like procedure that we can do again and again and again and get stuff right. Okay, so all you need to do is use that understanding that the opposite, the inverse to plus 4, is minus 4, and put him on top of the arrow. Okay, for our next one, we've got a minus 3. Okay, so all we've got to do is think of, well, how do we get rid of that minus 3? What's the inverse to minus 3 to put him back and make him like a? Well, if I want to do the opposite to minus 3, I just write plus 3. Okay, this one is 5b, so I've got to start off with my 5b. Now I've got to work out what I would do to take him back to b. Okay, well 5b is just 5 lots of b, so all I've got to do is divide it by 5 to put it back like it was. Okay, all I do is the inverse, the opposite. Times by 5 here, divide by 5 on the arrow to put it back to b. Okay, c divided by 7. Okay, well that's c divided by 7. The opposite to divide by 7 is times by 7. Okay, so I just take my c divided by 7, I times it by 7, and I get back to what c is. Okay, that's a little bit of a hard concept conceptually, but hopefully the process of doing the opposite would be a bit intuitive by now. All you do is you see what happens on this side of the diagram and think, oh, what's the opposite to that event? The opposite to plus 4 is minus 4. The opposite to plus 3 is, the opposite to minus 3 is the plus 3. The opposite to times by 5 is the divide by 5. And the opposite to divide by 7 is times by 7. Okay, later, Gators.